everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a review for episode 8 and 9. I know you guys are used to me doing single reviews for every episode, but I felt it would be better to combine these reviews because a lot happened, but it was easy to summarize for 8 and 9, and I believe that we'll be able to tie everything together and discuss it in this video. So if you haven't seen episodes 1 through 7 review, they're up on the channel, and if you have seen it, let's get into episode 8 and 9. This episode was a little bit confusing for me. I wasn't sure what happened. You know, when you kind of know that the season is ending, the series is ending, I'm like, okay, but how are they just gonna stick this right in and not have any explanation for it? And so episode 10, I'm hoping to get a little bit more clarity on what's going on with Lucky and why she's in the mental hospital, but that's where the scene starts. She's disheveled, she's in the mental hospital, her family isn't allowed to see her, but Henry is trying to be by her side and visiting her every single day, but they have accused her, I believe, of killing her baby, and that's at least what her daughters believe, or at least what Gracie believes. And the father, I think Henry is admitting to it, that he also knows she did it. Lucky's also saying that she did it, but she still wants to see her family. That was really confusing, but again, we're going to get clarity likely in episode 10 to wrap everything up. So Lucky's in the mental hospital, and so they said that she is not fit for a criminal charge, but she is mentally unstable. So I guess instead of putting her in jail for whatever she did, they decided to put her in a mental facility. And ironically, but not ironically, she's in the same mental facility as Arnett Beaumont. There's this warden there that claims to have treated many black women, which is just weird how they just single out black women in the mental institution as if this mental institution is specifically for black women, and that she's so good at curing them and fixing them. And she's telling Henry that he shouldn't see his family, and shouldn't see Lucky, shouldn't bring the family over, that he should focus on his girls, and then telling Lucky that her family doesn't want to see her, and we see that separation, that she doesn't want to help Lucky whatsoever. She wants to drive her apart from her family and likely keep her there forever. So we're gonna, hopefully we see what's going on with this warden and what exactly her issue is and what exactly her purpose is in this, but we know that she's being held against her will in this mental facility. To wrap up Lucky in this mental facility, she is visited by the Black Hat Man. And so it seems that it's his doing that has driven her there. And so we know that Lucky, normally she's a little bit out of it due to the death of her baby, but she is not a violent person, she's not a crazy person, but whenever she's touched by the Black Hat Man, whenever she's manipulated by the Black Hat Man, she does really bad things. And so last episode we saw that she almost killed her daughter with an axe, and so this episode we know that she did something, or she's being accused of something, and he has something to do with it. He lets her know that he's the one who's keeping her in the hospital. Let's talk about Betty. So the scene that includes Betty in this episode opens up with her still at the milkman's house, and she wakes up, which means that she never went back to wherever she was, or she never went back home rather. And it's really eerie that there's wallpaper that matches hers. It seems like there's a home there. I thought that was the milkman's home. It turns out that he drugged her and kidnapped her and is keeping her in an underground cell of some sorts that is a makeshift home. He does not plan to release her. So I'm really scared. If you remember last review, I thought that he would possibly harm her in some way. I didn't know what that rope was for, but that rope was to kind of to hold her captive, to tie her up, which he apologizes for. He has this obsessive nature about him, about Betty, and it's just interesting that she got herself into this predicament because she sought him out, not even knowing his full nature, knowing what he was capable of, knowing what his motive was. She just thought that in a desperate time, this is the man I need in order to get the MRAs and get what I want. And it just goes to show you that, you know, if Betty was minding her business, she wouldn't have been in this situation. So it's really unfortunate. At the end of it, well, let's just say this. I thought it was really interesting that Betty wasn't outwardly fearful. I know she was fearful because obviously she's been kidnapped, but there's something eerie about how calm she was the entire time. She kind of went along with everything that he was doing. I knew she had an ulterior motive, but I was wondering what exactly she was going to do, but she was just really calm. Even after she stabbed the milkman, Gregory, she stabbed him and just kind of stabbed him. He was calm as well. He was just like, ouch, I'm sorry you feel that way. And then he left. So it's really scary. I'm afraid about what he's going to come back and do with Betty, but hopefully she finds a way to free herself, because I know she didn't really plan for that situation. But Betty's still missing, and so Marty, we don't see Clark, who is Betty's husband in this episode, but we do see Marty, who decides to step up. If Clark, her own husband's not going to come get her, Marty is going to save the day, and he's just a dog with a bone. He convinced himself that the Emorys have something to do with this disappearance of Betty, and he goes and he harasses and he attacks the Emorys. And this was extremely hard to watch. At this point, I felt like the show was losing me. I think mostly because I was like, where is this going? But also I'm just like, I'm kind of tired of seeing the trauma. I'm tired of seeing them being beaten, them scaring the girls. I was literally shook, and I almost turned off the TV when Marty directed whoever to take her to the basement, to take Gracie to the basement. First thought was like, what is she going to do to her? Like, why is she in the basement, And he obviously has beaten Henry and has tied Henry up. And he acknowledges that Henry does not know anything about Betty's disappearance. A few times he acknowledges that. He kind of blames Lucky, calling her Mammy or whatever. But he acknowledges that Henry likely does not know anything about Betty's disappearance, yet he continues to torture him anyway. And that just lets you know that Marty's a dog with a bone. I don't think he really even thinks that the Emorys had anything to do with her disappearance, but he just needed a reason. He needed a reason to come over there. He tried to come over there on behalf of the kid that Lucky chased with his stick. He came over there, multiple times he tried to come over there and confront them with his boys. Nobody was on board. Now this is a great reason for him to come to the Emorys and harass them, and specifically harm Henry. It was extremely hard to watch him cut off Henry's finger off his hand. I'm like mincing my words right now because I just watched it, so I'm just thinking about it. It was extreme. I could not believe that they had him hanging Henry in front of his kids. Like, I just was so sick of watching this show at this point, because I just feel like mentally overwhelmed with how much trauma is being shown every single episode. And I understand that this is something like a truth that's being exposed, but it's still hard, and I'm not afraid to say it was really hard to watch that. So that's how Henry and the East Compton neighbors, that's how their story wrapped up for episode 8. Lucky coming to the warden again saying, listen, I want to see my family, let me go, whatever. And the warden's not having it. She ends up going to sleep, and then when she wakes up, she's tied to her bed and she's restrained. She doesn't know what's going on, and then boom, the black hat man comes and visits her, lets her know what his intentions are, to drive her crazy, drive her family crazy until they kill themselves, and then keep her there. And so now that wraps everything up and lets us know a little bit about why she's there, but we're going to get into this black hat man. Again, this is another opportunity for us to see him really clearly, and so that leads into episode 9. That wraps up episode 8. So if you haven't seen episode 9, I'm taking a break right here, so you can pause this video, go watch episode 9, and come back to the same video for the review. If you've seen episode 9, keep tuning in, because we're going to get right into it. And thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe. Let's get into episode 9. You're still here, great. Let's get into episode 9. I felt like this episode was hard to watch because I was a little bit bored with it, but I understood its purpose. I think it had two main purposes. One, to give an origin story to the Black Hat Man. Finally, we understand what this spirit is, who he is, and what his purpose is in this show. And also, it was a bit of a history lesson, right? It was a bit of an exposure of Christianity, not much of the religion, but how people, specifically white people during that time, and continued to use Christianity, use the good book, use the Lord's name in order to terrorize and punish and capture and make black people do their bidding as the Lord's will or as the Lord's word, how they used the Bible to literally terrorize the world. And in this instance, black people in America. So that was what I found was the two purposes of this episode. So let's get into the origin story. From my understanding, the black hat man, his name is Epps, so we'll refer to him as Epps from here on. We learn his name, and he is a leader of this religious community. In the beginning of this episode, he has seemed to have taken a lost his son. He's crying to the skies about why the Lord took him, and that leads him to find this young boy in the pasture somewhere who's feeble, dirty, weak. He's in fetal position. He names him Miles, he takes him in as his son, and he raises this boy. Now he leads this community, and he seems to be so nice, and he seems to be so welcoming. And so this couple, Grafton and Martha, a black couple, happens to break down in the pasture, in this community, and he welcomes them with open arms. I'm like, where is this going? He's so nice, like, how could this turn bad? That's what I was thinking. But it did, because the community members, as we know, were looking at them funny because they're black, they're Africans, as they were referred to. And so they were kind of outcast, even though Epps was really being welcoming and asking for them to give, Grafton and Martha a chance. But things started to change, I believe, when after a few days, their wagon wasn't fixed. They didn't have any inkling of leaving anytime soon. I'm wondering, like, how many days have they been in this community? Things seemed to change when Grafton said, listen, we've been staying here for a little bit of time now. I don't feel right just loafing around and taking your hospitality. I'll help out around here. And he offers to dig a well that has dried. They can't seem to tap water. He offers that he'll do some digging, and he ends up tapping water. And so there's a jealousy that brewed amongst the men in that community because they weren't able to do it. They start accusing black magic, and they start, being super rude to the couple. The women of the community were being rude to Martha, and yet Epps was keeping his ground about being fair to the couple, but then things started to change, and that was really confusing to me, exactly what changed Epps in the moment where he turned on them. Now, it's important to note that the community also started questioning Epps's commitment to God and his connection to God, specifically led by the man Luther, who was questioning why Epps was the mouthpiece for God in this community, how he was able to talk to him and nobody else was. And I believe when Luther accused, and everyone accused the black couple of being having black magic or doing witchcraft in order to tap the water or whatever, I believe that's kind of what started the change in Epps. He is praying to God, asking God, what is his purpose? What am I here for? Show me something. And then boom, he sees Martha in an illusion, in a delusion. He starts seeing her differently, starts treating her bad. She slaps him, and then he uses that opportunity to jail her. Now, he holds her hand so tight that he puts her body in stress and causes her to go in labor, yet he still puts the Grafton and Martha in jail as she's contracting, as she's having labor. And I couldn't believe that. Just so inhumane. Literally treated them like animals, said that verbatim. They were like, if we're gonna put you where the animals are since you're an animal. Long story short, you guys seen the episode. They were freed on purpose. Someone opened up their stables, opened up the horse's stable, opened up their stables so that they could leave, so that they could be accused of stealing the horse that belonged to them, so that they could be put on trial. After, Epps starts talking to the Lord about what the Lord wants them to do, the conviction was, and the punishment for the crime was that they stole the horse, so they lost their eyes and they were gouged out by a heated iron. Again, another display of complete cruelty, which was really hard to watch. And so at that moment, after that happened, this was a little bit confusing to me too. He's talking to Martha and Grafton with no eyes in their head, and then she stands up and she curses him. At first, I was like, what, witchcraft? Wait, is she a witch? Or wait, was that a magic trick? Or did he set that book on fire himself in order to make this grand gesture, in order to do what he did next? And then watching the full episode, I realized that, I will get to what I realized. So anyway, she causes the book to go ablaze, and they get accused of black magic witchcraft. So what do? They hang them and burn them at the stake like witches. And so we see that happen. We see the way these people are marveling with slight smiles on their faces. Just shows just the cruelty of these people. They weren't even disgusted at burning flesh ahead of them. They were actually in awe about it. It was just hard to watch that. But then we see the whole town, the whole community starts to go ablaze. This boy Miles leads Epps to a basement, and he reveals himself. Miles is a delusion. Miles is the origin of these delusions, of these supernatural illusions that happen. And it first happened to Epps, and it reveals to us that Miles is what I believe was the devil speaking to Epps, and Epps thought he was speaking to the Lord, but it was really the devil. Epps ends up doing, I believe that it was Miles that caused the book to go aflame, right? To cause everything, right? So that whole witchcraft thing of how she made the book go aflame, it was all Miles, because he's not a child. He is an entity, right? An evil entity. And so this is the origin of Epps. He made a deal with the devil. Basically, your soul will be preserved if you continue to take black souls and destroy black lives. If you do not continue to destroy black lives and black souls, then your soul will go to hell. So basically, he made an exchange, and that's what started. So at the very end of this episode, you see current town, Compton, East Compton, and it just showed me that East Compton is on the same land that this community was way back then. And so the Black Hat Man spirit is set to roam this area. This is why he only terrorizes families that enter East Compton. And so he will continue to terrorize every single black family for eternity, cause them to be stir crazy, cause them to go crazy, take their souls, all of that, because that is the deal he did with the devil. If he doesn't fulfill that, he will go to hell. And that's how that ended. So it gives us a little bit of insight. So both episode 8 and 9 were pretty short. Episode 9 was a little bit more informative, but a little bit hard to watch for many reasons. 8 was dramatic and really hard to watch. So we will be wrapping up with 10. But speaking of wrapping up, that is the end of this episode. That's the end of this video. Episode 8, episode 9 review. Leave comments below for both. Let me know how you feel about both episodes. I haven't seen 10 yet, so don't spoil. But just let me know how you guys are feeling about each episode. Don't forget to subscribe, because episode 10 will be up very soon. And I will catch you guys later.